Welcome to Arsenal, where the weapons and war machines of military history come to life. Today, we explore the Bradley fighting vehicle in the Gulf War and the crews and opponents who gave it its reputation. If you enjoy learning how technology, tactics, and human decisions come together in combat, you can find more articles, podcasts, and resources at trackpads.com. Out on the dark Saudi desert in early 1991, the Bradley shows what it was built to do. It carries soldiers, hunts enemy armor, and helps shape the fight long before the first boot hits the sand. Inside one Bradley, the driver feels the hull sway over low dunes while seeing almost nothing but the green glow of his viewer. Above him, the turret turns, the gunner locked into the thermal sight, where enemy vehicles bloom as bright shapes against a cooler background. The commander scans with his own viewer, calling out ranges and bearings, listening to reports from other vehicles and higher headquarters. A short burst from the 25mm cannon chews into a trench line, then a missile launches from the turret's side in a bright flare and wires trailing behind. Arsenal is the Friday feature of Dispatch, U.S. military history magazine. For the dismounts riding in the back, every lurch and every radio call is a reminder that soon the ramp may drop and the fight will move outside. The Bradley grew from fears that earlier armored personnel carriers could not survive or fight on a modern battlefield. During the Cold War, United States mechanized infantry rode mainly in M113 carriers that could move troops but were lightly armed and thinly armored. Across the inner German border, Soviet forces fielded BMP infantry fighting vehicles with cannons, anti-tank missiles, and better protection. Planners worried that United States infantry would arrive late, exposed, and undergunned in any clash of armored formations in Europe. They wanted a new vehicle that could carry a squad, fight with real firepower, and keep up with the latest main battle tanks. Designers and soldiers together wrote a long list of demands, and those demands sometimes clashed. The new vehicle had to be fast enough to move with Abrams tanks, tough enough to take hits that would wreck an M113, and armed well enough to kill enemy fighting vehicles and threaten tanks. It also needed to carry several dismounts and, at least in early concepts, swim rivers without heavy preparation. More armor meant more weight and less space in the back. A heavier turret with a cannon and missiles added killing power, but strained the suspension and engine. Over time, the realities of armor, firepower, and expected threats pushed the design away from easy swimming and toward thicker protection. At its core, the Bradley is a tracked infantry and cavalry fighting vehicle built for the United States Army during the late Cold War. It normally carries a crew of 3, with a driver in the hull front and a gunner and commander sharing the turret, plus space in the rear for a small team of dismounts. Its main armament is a 25mm chain gun, paired with a coaxial machine gun for close support. On the turret side sit tubes for a tube-launched, optically tracked, wire-guided missile system, often called TOW, giving it long reach against tanks and bunkers. On roads, it can run at highway speeds with tanks, and its fuel and maintenance demands shape how far units can push it in one long march. For a new soldier, climbing into a Bradley for the first time is a shock. The hull looks big from the outside, but inside, every surface is covered in cables, racks, and gear, with little space left for people. The driver sits low in the hull, with steering controls, pedals, and a handful of periscopes or a night viewer, feeling more than seeing the ground speeds and ruts. Above and slightly behind him, the turret forms a cramped world of sights, grips, and displays, where the gunner and commander sit almost shoulder to shoulder. Each has his own view of the battlefield, and much of their skill lies in turning those separate views into one shared picture. The troop compartment at the rear is where dismounts live between fights. They enter through a powered rear ramp, or a smaller door built into it, shuffling past ammunition racks and stowed equipment to reach bench seats along the sides. Packs, extra water, spare ammunition, and personal gear quickly eat into the limited room, so soldiers learn to pack carefully and move in tight spaces. When the ramp is closed, the outside world becomes the thrum of the engine, the clank of the tracks, and whatever crackles over the intercom from the vehicle commander. A short sentence from that voice can change everything. It might be a simple update, or a warning that they are 1 minute from contact and about to step off into a live fight. Crew roles inside the Bradley are sharply defined because confusion under armor can be deadly. The driver focuses on keeping the vehicle where it needs to be without bogging down or exposing the flank unnecessarily. The gunner manages weapon selection, target tracking, and fine turret control, switching between armor-piercing and high-explosive ammunition as ordered. The commander keeps one eye on the sight and another on the broader fight, listening to the radio net and deciding which threats matter most. Intercom traffic blends short-range calls, target bearings, and quick corrections about friendly positions. When things go well, that constant talk sounds almost casual. When things go badly, short, clear words matter. In Desert Storm, the Bradley's careful design met its first major campaign. Mechanized infantry battalions and armored cavalry regiments used Bradleys to screen ahead of tanks, protect flanks, and punch through defensive belts. Thermal sights allowed crews to spot Iraqi vehicles and fighting positions at ranges where the enemy struggled to respond. A typical engagement might begin with Bradleys identifying enemy silhouettes on a distant berm, then opening fire with cannon and missiles before the opposing force fully understood what was hitting them. As Abrams tanks joined in, the combined effect shattered exposed armored units and trench networks. On paper, the Bradley's strengths looked impressive, and in combat, many of them held up. Firepower from the chain gun and missiles gave it the ability to destroy armored personnel carriers, older tanks, and field fortifications. Optics and night vision allowed crews to fight effectively in darkness and adverse conditions, an advantage that tells in many accounts of the ground war. Mobility meant the Bradley could keep pace with tanks on long movements and cross-country thrusts. Crews came to trust that the armor, especially in improved variants, would protect them from small arms and fragments that would have been far more dangerous in older vehicles. That trust mattered on every approach to a suspected enemy position. Weaknesses also emerged, especially as the Bradley moved from short, high-intensity campaigns into long, complex operations in rough terrain and towns. The vehicle's height and length made it a noticeable target in confined streets and among low buildings. Mines and heavy anti-tank weapons could still disable or destroy it, sometimes with terrible loss of life inside the troop compartment. Space in the rear was always tight, and as armor packages grew heavier, some configurations carried fewer dismounts than originally planned. In later conflicts with scattered enemy fighters and improvised explosive devices, crews adapted tactics to reduce exposure, but they never forgot that armor is protection, not invulnerability. Over its life, the Bradley family developed into multiple variants that reflected changing missions and lessons learned. The M2 infantry fighting vehicle concentrated on moving and supporting squads, while the M3 cavalry version carried fewer dismounts but more ammunition and communications gear for reconnaissance tasks. Successive upgrade programs added better sights, more capable missiles, and thicker armor, including explosive reactive tiles on some models. Internal changes improved ammunition stowage, fuel system protection, and crew survivability in the event of a penetration. Later versions incorporated digital navigation and data systems that tied Bradleys more closely into networked command and control, changing how leaders planned and monitored fights. The Bradley's story did not stop when the Cold War ended. It went on to serve in multiple operations where urban terrain, complex insurgencies, and roadside bombs posed new threats. In those environments, the same combination of firepower, armor, and optics still counted, But crews and commanders had to adapt their use of the vehicle to narrow streets, crowded highways, and the constant risk of hidden explosive charges. Experiences from those deployments fed into later decisions about route clearance, convoy composition, and the need for specialized vehicles designed to resist blasts from below. The Bradley remained part of the mix, still carrying soldiers and still offering a movable gun platform to support them. Today, the Bradley fighting vehicle stands as both a product of a specific era and a bridge to new ideas about how to move infantry under armor. It helped fix the infantry fighting vehicle concept inside United States doctrine, showing that troops and heavy weapons could ride together in a single platform. Its strengths and flaws shaped later designs that tried to improve protection, capacity, and mobility while retaining or exceeding its fighting power. In museums, on training ranges, and as gate guards at bases, preserved Bradleys remind visitors of long road marches, dusty training areas, and convoys that rolled into danger. For those who rode them into war, the memory is more personal. They recall the smell of the interior, the chatter on the intercom, and the knowledge that this armored box was their world whenever the ramp came up.